This is the Freeheel Life Podcast, episode number 48. I'm your host, Josh Madsen, coming at you from the Freeheel Life Shop in Salt Lake City, Utah. And we've got another episode today, and I'll be rolling solo. And I've got video coming in from several places, and it's snowing, people. Winter's here, and I can't wait. I actually got my good buddy Keith Opperman up in Wisconsin sent me some video of it snowing up there, and actually one of the small resorts was going to be opening, and I was pretty impressed with that. So October skiing is going to be happening from the looks of it. The spot is Trollhaugen. I think it's Trollhaugen. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but you can probably look it up. Somewhere in Wisconsin, you can go skiing in October, so get after it. But yeah, as far as newsrooms and newsroom items and notes, that's pretty much it. Winter is on. The shop is open. We're a couple weeks into it now, and we can tell that it's going to be a styling season from the looks of it. We've been able to help out a lot of customers. Hopefully, you've been able to get a hold of us. We tried to kind of improve our phone call system and all that. We're still kind of working out the kinks. I know we were joking around about one thing is we kind of got the phone system a little more sophisticated, and in the process made it a little less personal. So we're working on that. So unfortunately, if you've called in and it sounds like you're in a slew of telecommunication lines and it's pretty generic, we're working on bringing back some pretty voices to the world, so you're not stuck in a web of weird phone stuff. We're still pretty small, you guys, but trying to make sure we can handle all the phone calls coming in and all that. So we really appreciate your patience as we grow and learn to help you guys and just get to be a better business and better service people. So I wanted to start off today reading from a book that I just got, and this book is called Mountain Skiing by Vic Bine, and the version that I have was published, it looks like, in 1982, first printing. My buddy Keith Calhoun, who is one of my newly found friends to the podcast, was one of the early kind of second generation Telemark skiers out of Crested Butte, had mentioned this, and so I went and tracked down a copy. And you know, like when you kind of get the old books, they sort of break open to a certain spot. Well, this is exactly what I opened to, and I wanted to share it with you because I thought it was a fun little tidbit. The vertical plane turn. After a fall in deep powder, it is easy to get hopelessly stuck. But this predicament also can be easily avoided. If you feel that falling forward down the slope is inevitable, don't fight it. Relax and let the gravity and the momentum roll you over in a somersault. Then get back on your feet. Sometimes I relax too much and the momentum takes me through 2 rollovers. It's so much fun that I occasionally do it on purpose. I call this technique the vertical plane turn, and when I first tried it, I almost choked to death. No, not because of the fluff, but from laughing. To prevent the fluff from sneaking in underneath your parka, install a powder crotch drawstring, a short piece of elastic connecting the front and back bottom edges of your parka. And there's some amazing illustrations of the vertical plane turn where he is going head first into the snow and rolling out of it. So I kind of giggled to myself as I found this because in modern times we would normally call this a telly roll, but I guess old Vic Bine kind of beat us to the punch, and we should more appropriately be calling it the vertical plane turn. But especially people getting into telemarketer, if you've been a telemarketer for a long time, I think we are all familiar with the teleroll, aka the vertical plane turn. So I just wanted to share that with you. I thought that was kind of a fun little spot. So I'm going to keep doing some reading. I'm kind of going through some old books and catching up on some stuff, and just kind of, as I'm finding some stuff from the past, I always like to kind of read up on it. Old techniques, old ways of looking at stuff, how telemark was viewed in the past, and it's pretty fun. I think especially some of these older books, they kind of, like I've said on the podcast before, I mean, there were obviously a lot of the Nordic elements kind of built into that in the early days, especially in the kind of American revival of telemark in the 70s. So yeah, it's pretty fun. Anyways, vertical plane turn. If you didn't know, now you know. So today's episode, I'm going to catch up on a little bit of mailbag and questions and answers and stuff you guys have sent in. It always I kind of let them pile up a little bit. And sometimes I can't get back to all the emails. I try my best. You guys don't stop sending them. I actually love hearing from you guys. I think now that we're kind of getting in the groove with the shop open, and we kind of survived the summer of COVID and the epicness that was, back in action. So thought this would be a good chance. I'm rolling solo, and I always like to read these, and some of them most of them are really great. So I just thought I'd read them out loud, and kind of make that the podcast today. Hopefully you guys find it interesting, and hopefully it encourages you guys to write in. I am 100% getting these, and love your questions and love your comments. So this first one, I'm going to kick it off because I was laughing when I saw this, because it's our first friendly hate mail. And I don't think it's hate mail, but I was kind of laughing, and it gave me a little chuckle. This one's from Alex, and he says, I know Dosty tests and reviews the newest equipment, and he's spent more time on skis than most other people. But I was bummed when he was giving people shit for still skiing on G3 Targas. It is directly counter to your ethos of doing whatever you need to be out there skiing or introducing telemark to new people. I've got old skis with Targas and BDO ones and old T1 boots that I hope to have people trying out all winter. I'm pretty sure Dosty is a great guy, but for a stretch there, he came off like an elitist prick. Still love the podcast though. Keep up the stoke. So thanks for sending that, Alex. That actually, that got me thinking, and it also got me on I called Craig and immediately told him this, and he got a good laugh at it. I think, and I didn't get a chance to go back and listen how we were talking about Targas, but Targas kind of, so first off, you're 100% right that my ethos and philosophy is pretty much whatever you got, get after it. And everyone's kind of got their own flavor, and that, yeah, you're 100% right. And I called Dosty because I was like, I couldn't really remember like what exactly we had said, but I think he kind of, I probably should have him, I shouldn't talk for him, but I'll just kind of paraphrase. I think his initial thought was that he was kind of thinking about it in terms of tourability, and once people had free pivot, he was just like, what are you doing, type of thing. But he agrees, and actually Craig is a great guy, and we are both of the I think we're cut from the same cloth, that it's all, every era of telemark and whatever gear you've got, it's the best. And actually he's one of the biggest proponents of 75 millimeter equipment being really kind of the genesis of people getting into telemark in the future, because there's going to be so much of it sitting around as people get into NTN. So I thought I'd offer some clarification, but thank you for sending that in. I love it. One, it means a lot to me that you've picked up that there is an ethos behind Freeheel Life, what I stand for, what I've tried to push in our shop. with our employees and the people around us. And we love all telemarketers all the time. So, but it's good to get a good little funny check every once in a while. So I appreciate that. But we'll keep hammering. We'll make sure to do a better job of clarifying too. But all you Target people, we love you. And Craig Dostie loves you too. Just so you know. Oh man, it still makes me laugh. This next one kind of went along with it too. And I kind of, again, I thought it was funny because we obviously struck a little chord here, but this is from Seth. He says, "Hey Josh, love your podcast and love your recent interview with Craig. I'm one of those old school tele skiers that you guys reference and slightly mock. Only just recently did I switch over to TTS, meaning Telemark Text System, from my beloved Targas. Your conversation with Craig got me thinking about why I was such a late, stubborn adopter. For me, it partly came down to sticking with gear that worked, and the Targas work day in and day out. I think that the other part of it is frugality. I think many tele skiers pride themselves on some level of frugality, resourcefulness, and a fix-it-yourself attitude. For me, that sometimes made me skeptical of new equipment and late to switch over. Nonetheless, I love my new TTS gear. My Karhu Targa setup remains in the basement. I love looking at it, but I'm not sure I'll ski it again. However, the neutral feel of the Targas that you and Craig spoke about that relies so heavily on balance is a really fun tele-turn feel. Maybe there's something to that that's worth preserving. All the best. Keep up the great work. Best, Seth." Thanks, man. Awesome. I think that kind of resonates with what I was saying with what Alex said in that last email too. And I actually really resonate. Like when you talk about the frugality of it, that definitely strikes a chord with me. Obviously starting Telemark in the mid 90s. I didn't grow up with money, and I honestly, most of my family didn't ski. We had a little bit of ski history too, but once you kind of had the boots in place and, getting a pair of bindings, and then one of my first setups I ever got was at a secondhand shop, Plating and Sports, that, they have in many parts of the country. And I got a pair of K2 Extremes because I thought Glenn Plake was pretty amazing. And I slapped a pair of Riva 1s on there from Black Diamond. And I think that really is part of the traditions and stuff that lie within the fabric of Telemark, is sort of, like you said, sort of the frugality, the simplicity. And, I have a feeling that I think some of that too, as time has gone on, it makes Telemark feel a little bit different because it costs a lot it's harder to cobble stuff together. I know that's one reason at our shop why I've always thought it's important to have used gear, and accessible rentals is literally for that reason, because we don't expect that everybody has a ton of money to get into Telemark. So we even have I think college rentals, or I know we've done them in the past for like $20, because our theory was if a 12 or a beer costs the same amount as a rental, you basically have to price it based on beer prices. If you can keep it lower than the keg on the weekend, then you might be able to get younger people on telly. But so to your point, yeah, I agree. I think preservation of certain eras of turns and frugality too, I think those will always exist. And I think it's important. Obviously some gear is more expensive. It costs more money, but the overall sentiment of that, I love it. So thanks for sharing. And hopefully that sheds a little more light on kind of where, sometimes we get carried away. we start talking shit about some random thing, and it's not, hopefully you guys, hopefully there's no offense taken. Sometimes we're just shooting the breeze and stuff kind of comes out and we kind of personalize it. I'll tell you though, if you're skiing Targas, I will say a lot of the kids that learn on new stuff, you put them on that stuff and it is punishment. It's like how I've mentioned we have an initiation. If you work at the shop, we have a leather initiation where we stick you on 3 pins, over 200 centimeter skis and low cut leather boots. And it's for that reason is, if you're a young kid and you haven't had that sensation, you need to, because that's the history. And I want that to be in the blood of Telemark forever, not because we're holding people back from innovation, but I think again, like I said, the fabric of Telemark, this is like I always say, we're protectors of the turn, and that's all of us, not just us at the shop. People that love Telemark and you're super into it. I mean, this is part of understanding it. It's like the history, and it's just like anything in life. I think the more perspective you have on a topic, the different aspects of it you can learn, the better. And it just makes you a better Telemark skier, snow traveler, and overall person. So, it helps you understand other people and whatnot. So that's my 2 cents on that. That's why I like history so much. Helps you kind of gain a perspective on things. So, all right, moving on to the next one. This one is from a gentleman named Adam. And I'm going to paraphrase kind of some of this stuff. He just starts off, "Hey Josh, I'm a big fan of the Freeheel Life podcast. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge and passion for this amazing way of life." You are welcome, my brother. I love it. Kind of skipping forward, like I was just saying, being a well-rounded Telemark skier, he brings this up. He says, "Thank you for focusing so much, thank you for focusing some recent topics and even full episodes, like the one with Craig Gordon, on these issues and helping people understand the importance of these competencies." And he's referring to the episode with Craig Gordon from the Utah Avalanche Forecast Center. He says, "This is something I know all too well. I was caught, carried, and buried in 2007 with years of experience, ARIES certification, and a conservative approach. A sobering reminder of how our passion and pleasure is also so precarious. Keep up the good work of promoting the importance of these skills in our sport. The more we normalize it, the more I think entrained it will become in our community." So, yeah, absolutely, Adam. And I love talking to Craig. He's been such a great influence locally here in Salt Lake, and I'm so glad that you're okay after your incident in 2007. That's scary. I mean, anyone who's even, to be caught, carried, and buried, I mean, that's heavy, and I can't even imagine. That's an intense experience. I've never been caught and buried. I've been really close to fair size slides. Like I've seen them break off and go past me, and man, it's hard to explain. I mean, it's definitely one of those things, like there's so much energy in nature, and it's kind of hard to explain it to people, and I think, I agree. The more we can talk about these topics, and, someone may be out there and they're like, well, I don't live in an area where there's avalanches, and, I think that's okay. And maybe those people are never going to be backcountry skiers, but I really am a big fan. And like I've said on the podcast before, it's even someone like me that's done it for Telemark for so long, man, now it's opening my mind to all these different aspects, of like how to better myself as a mountain person, as a skier, whether I'm inbounds or out of bounds or training, before the season, during the season, after the season. Yeah, I guess it's really, it's a way of life. And, obviously you're not skiing year round. Most of us aren't, but yeah, I love that. And thanks for sharing that. You think that's important. And I know we're going to be doing more, we'll be doing more and more backcountry related stuff too. I like to mix that in because, I really do think that's an important topic to cover, regardless of where people are at, where they're living, if they have backcountry or not. Adam also sent me, some, well, I'll just read this too, because this is one part I love about you guys. You guys send me all these amazing emails with pictures of crazy stuff that I'm like, whoa, never even seen that. But He just says, anyways, I was having a beer with a buddy and is always preaching the telly gospel. He showed me some old Telemark skis his dad gave him and that have been in his family for an unknown amount of time. He does not telly himself, though I am making progress on him. But he is really curious about these skis. Know how much knowledge you have. I thought I'd reach out and see if you had any knowledge about these. Is there anything you can tell me about these from the photos? And yeah, you guys can't see these, but I thought it would be, obviously there's no photos that you can see, but it reminded me, and I've got a couple pairs of these at the shop, not this exact one, but it really got me thinking about maybe what skiing was like, in the earlier part of skiing in America. As people migrated over from the Scandinavian countries, European countries, this particular one, he actually sent me, and if you're out there and you're listening to this and you have some information, definitely shoot me an email at podcast@freeheellife.com and I can pass this on. And yeah, it'd just be good. I think if you're listening out there and you know about this particular brand, it'd be cool to get some more info. But anyways, it has a logo on the ski that says Northland Ski Manufacturing, St. Paul, Minnesota. And it's got this sweet kind of emblem of an elk, and then it has Northland Ski on it, made in the USA. But a lot of these early skis, and I've got a pair of these wood skis at the shop, and they're mostly solid pieces of wood that were carved, which is really the traditional Norwegian style, in Morgedal and in those areas. It was a solid piece of wood that was shaped and then bent and carved, and that's how they made them. And a lot of these skis were like that, and then painted. These particular ones kind of have a black paint on them. And it's so cool because I have a feeling, like I'm always talking about building a telemark industry, and you're going to see this, and I think just in snow sports in general is people are wanting more independent companies, and telemark's perfect for that, you guys. There's a lot of room for us to make stuff, build stuff for one another. And again, it's, there's different sizes of economies to scale that, like people are going to be able to purchase this stuff. But point being, at one point, the ski business was a lot more like that. It was these small companies, family-owned companies that were making skis. And I always love seeing the Midwest stuff because, especially if you've been to Minnesota, there's a lot of, Norwegians that landed there, and, you see a lot of these skis being made in the early 1900s like that. So the bindings are kind of interesting too. So yeah, the bindings, Adam, if you're listening to this, and I'll email you as well. Sometimes these early wood skis I'll be honest with you, kind of the gap of early wooden skis with bindings that appear to be Freeheel. It's very interesting. These ones actually do look pretty Freeheel-ish in the sense that it's kind of a leather strap, and then it's got sort of a metal toe that it attaches to. As time progressed, even into I want to say like the 40s and early 50s, you still had the Alpine skis had a cable around the back, but then there was these little latches on the side that would latch it down. And so it basically looked like a Telemark cable binding with these little hooks that basically kept the heel fastened down to the ski. And instead of having a heel piece that you clipped into, which came later on. I need to do a little bit better with my dates on that. But yeah, these look like, I don't know much about them because there was a lot of these small independent family companies that made the skis. They were more regional, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but that's my impression is that, people made skis within that area. And I don't know how much national distribution of skis. That's actually a good topic I probably need to dig into. A lot of the ski resorts kind of happened post World War II, right? So, you probably saw a lot of growth with stuff in the late 40s going into the 50s and 60s and whatnot. But yeah, that's probably when ski shops started sort of popping up, I would believe. Prior to that, I don't know much about it, it'd be really interesting to find out more. So, yeah, that's crazy. It made me total random side note with the ski shop thing. Years ago, I met a gentleman in Los Angeles. I was a sales and marketing director at a little ski area in southern Utah called Bryan Head, and we actually went out to LA because that was sort of Southern California was part of that marketplace. And I met, we went to this little ski shop called Doc's in Santa Monica, I believe. And Doc was actually a 10th Mountain Division soldier in World War II and came back and started this ski shop. I mean, it had been there like 50 plus years. I don't think it's any longer. But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, these guys had started these ski shops and ski schools and all sorts of stuff post World War II. So it's pretty amazing. Anyways, that was my little rant, Adam. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, I'll shoot you an email. And if anybody has any info on the Northland Ski Company, I'd love to hear that, or any of that stuff. It'd be cool. Definitely a lot of gaps. There tends to be, historically, at least from my research, there's quite a bit of a gap from the time, I've talked about in the podcast about Morgedal in the late 1860s in Norway when the Telemark turn was fairly prevalent. And then, you at least in America, I think there's really a lot to be figured out as to what happened between, the 1860s, 70s, and then almost 100 years later when you really, some of my guests you start seeing in the early 1970s, people starting to bring the Telemark term back. And yeah, so there's a lot of history to be figured out. And, like I said, a lot of Sondre Norheim himself came to America, and, there's a whole story there. There's a lot of people that brought skiing over. But as far as like the Telemark turn, there definitely is. There's kind of like this 100-year gap where I think there's a lot to be figured out. It's kind of cool. It's a fun mystery, and I know I'm always digging into it, and hopefully I've sparked the interest of some of you guys out there too. And especially if you live in that Midwest zone, you've probably got some sweet little history nuggets kicking around there you don't even know about. So, well, let's move on to the next one. This one's from Bobby T. And I love this one. He says, "Hey Josh, killer job on the podcast. I've been catching up on old episodes now that it's bike season, and today I listened to the one with Keith Calhoun. You mentioned how you wanted to go ski at Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Well, I have a story for you. About 10 years ago, I bought a car from a guy in New York. So I flew east with my ski gear and then hit up a bunch of random resorts on my drive back west. It was a pretty springy, sunny day when I hit Ober-Gatlinburg, and under their one chairlift was a decent bump run. Not like Winter Park decent, but better than I expected to find in Tennessee. After maybe a half dozen laps on it, there was a guy waiting for me at the bottom. Turns out it was the mountain's general manager, and he was beyond stoked to see another tele skier. He said he hadn't seen one in 3 to 4 years. He had telegear himself, but never used it because of all the questions he'd get. I guess he worked at several resorts out west in the 70s and 80s, including my home resort, Arizona Snow Bowl. He was so excited by everything that he bought me a beer and gave me a bunch of Ober-Gatlinburg swag. Then I drove on to Nashville and saw a show at the Ryman that night. Anyway, it's obviously not a big or amazing resort, but if you're in that part of the country, that one bump run is enough to stay entertained for a half day. That and the school kids in camo jackets who love going fast but have zero interest in learning to stop. They're pretty entertaining too." Oh, Bobby T, man, that made my day. I love, that right there, that is the essence of why I keep a little running list of random ski resorts I want to go visit, because there's I love those stories. Like I love that GM, it's like you're some ancient person that he's literally waiting. He's like, I haven't seen anyone do that in 3 to 4 years. I mean, that's amazing. And I love that you showed like skiing a bump run under a lift. That's why I'm so enamored by these little resorts around the world, because the idea of telemarking is like, you don't need this massive mountain to learn how to do it. You may want to push your limits at some point, right? Go ski the big stuff, get in something steep, jump a rock, whatever. But the point is that these little places could be amazing areas to grow something that, you know, we just got to get access to equipment. Like I always say, access. So I just wanted to reread that story. So thanks, Bobby. That was amazing. And I don't know how long ago that was, but if you're the GM at Gatlinburg and you're a telemarketer, hit me up, because I would love to have you on the podcast. We're going to keep the Gatlinburg, Tennessee conversations rolling. So, and I honestly, on that note, you guys and gals, if you got a small little resort that you think is just super funky, email it to me. I mean, even just a quick email and just be like, hey, check this place out sometime. Because I've got a running list of stuff. And if you listen to these podcasts, usually someone will be like, oh, I'm from, you know, Connecticut or something. And I'll be like, oh yeah, I've got one there, you know, Powder Ridge. I want to go check it out. Southington, or, oh man, I'm trying to think, you know, there's some funky ones. I know you can ski in Hawaii. It's not a resort. There's definitely a lot of these small places where, you know, you can just check them out. St. Louis has some skiing. And all over. I'm always Iowa. I know Iowa's got skiing. Anyways, if you got a small resort and you want me to know about it, or if you have a cool telly story, shoot it over. I would love to hear from you, because those are the best. I always feel like those are the richest stories. Sometimes out west, we're spoiled out here. We get kind of, everything's too easy basically. The snow's really good. The mountains are big, and yeah, it's like bluebird and sunny and, you know, fresh snow. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is like, again, it's all about perspective, right? If you're skiing ice or skiing in the rain, you know what I'm talking about. Those West Coasters, we're just a bunch of dummies sometimes. So anyways, keep loving us. We'll try to, I'm trying to broaden my horizons always. So let me know about your little small resorts. So next one, Dave shot me a quick note, said, I like your concept. You're right. You can't grow the sport if people don't have access to rental or demo gear. The interest is out there, believe me. As a side note, many of my fellow patrollers tell me that telemark skiing is one damn inefficient way to get down the mountain. I'm not sure why the rush to stand in a lift line. My buddy, being a little more blunt, responds to the critics by saying, well, anyone can effing alpine. So what's your point? I might have even read this one before. Maybe I just kept it because I thought it was funny, but I love it. I mean, it just goes to the thing. We were just talking about the access. Doesn't matter where you are. If we can get gear, like I said, loan it to your buddies, get it to the people, you know, make a little setup for your kids. I know I'm trying to slate a little kids podcast too with some friends of mine, talk about how to get your kids into telemark. Again, access. And I know I teased it a little bit last week. I think next week's podcast, I'm going to be able to announce what I'm talking about. And all I'll say this time is it has to do with access issues and how to get equipment to people and what we're trying to do to improve that situation. So there's your little mystery for the week. And hopefully that stokes you out to listen next week. Okay, on to the next one. This is from Marcus. He said, what's up? I just want to write in and say how much I enjoy the weekly Freeheel Life podcast and all the other great stuff from Telemark Skier and Freeheel Life. I felt compelled to email you after the Keith Calhoun episode. Keith Calhoun's a popular guy. I like it. I too am a rabid telemark skier, and I live in Western North Carolina, just north of Asheville. Though I can't say I'm really a huge fan of Catalucci, I get about 35 days a season at my local hill called Wolf Ridge. It's about 40 minutes from his house. I've never even heard of Wolf Ridge. I live around 2 hours from Beach Mountain, Sugar Mountain. And he just offers me a good time if we get down there to ski. And he just, again, I love these little mountains, you guys. Like even just getting this email, I'm like, where is that? I've never even heard of it. But I love that you guys are out there, and I want to know more about your little tele scenes. Even if you're the only person out there, shoot me a quick message. Let me know your telemarking and let me know what it's like there. Yeah, so basically he just is saying, thanks for putting on the podcast, having an awesome shopping website. I love tele and can't wait to see my daughter dropping knees someday. And like I said, we're going to have some more stuff. We'd love to see your daughter dropping knees too. And we're going to, I wanted to parlay that kind of into the idea of, we also have kid season rentals. If you guys are interested out there, we can ship them to you. So hit up customer service at freeheellife.com and we can actually put setups together, have a little conversation with you on the phone and ship them to you for your kids. And then you can ship them back at the end of the year. So, Marcus, thanks for that quick note. I love it, man. I love knowing that you're out there. I love that North Carolina, you guys there's all these little tele scenes in North Carolina. That's why I really believe we are the telemark industry. When it really comes down to it, it's all of you guys that make it up out there. Now we just got to figure out how to keep building that up. And like, that's why I started Freeheel Life. Like I only started this shop because driving around and I would meet all these people from all over. It really didn't seem that crazy to start a telemark shop because I'd literally physically met most of you out there in most of the states that I'm at. And when you meet people from all these small places, it's not that hard. It's not that much of a stretch to think, hey, we've got the internet, we can ship stuff to you. And that's like the first phase of like, start a telemark shop for all these people, because I know it's unlikely, not impossible. It's unlikely someone's going to open a telemark shop in North Carolina or some of these other places where there's actually people doing it. So those last couple emails, I think they're just a great reminder that we make up the telemark quote unquote industry. And really what we got to do now is just support each other, buy from people like us at Freeheel Life, people that carry telemark equipment, and, we build it up from there brick by brick. So I liked reading those just because I like to, if you're some Rocky Mountain telemark skier, I like you guys to know too that there's these people in all these other small hills that they're gun ho. I learn a lot from you guys, so thanks for letting me indulge in all this. This one's from David. He just said, just listened to a couple of your podcasts today. They're my first podcast ever while I was painting my shed. Listened to the life cycle one and then the NTN versus 75 millimeter one. They both really spoke to me. Not sure if I've ever mastered anything, but love the idea of the mindless zone. Thinking about where and why you want to go rather than how you are going to get there. And I've had I had a really fun time doing that episode, you guys. And I'm glad that it resonated with you because I don't know, that one just kind of flowed out, and I've gotten some really amazing feedback from that one. I can't remember right off the bat which one that is, but I think it's called the life cycle, not the life hack of a telemark skier. And I love that resonated with you, and I want to dig more into that. I think what this podcast has given me is the opportunity to actually dig into my own brain and go, hey, what kind of experiences did I have in this process? Starting back in the early 90s and kind of going through all these different phases and skiing different equipment and practicing different stuff. And thank you for telling me that resonates with you, because that gets me thinking on a different wavelength of like how I can share this. But yeah, I love that, that mindless zone that you can get into with Telemark. Man, it really unlocks this whole other realm of possibilities, because, and that's why I always say this Telemark, a lot of times I want to call it more of like a craft than a sport. But I mean, it's the same thing, right? Like as you master something and you work to master the techniques and the combination of techniques, you really find another enjoyment level when those techniques become second nature, because your focus then leaves the techniques and becomes this other thing where it's just happening. And now you're just managing what's in front of you, and the techniques are second nature. And I love that. I think that's why Telemark, I always say, is a personality choice, because you're never, ever, ever, you're never going to achieve that mindless zone or even anything close to it if you're not even someone who loves to tackle a problem set in front of you. I mean, for real, like that's it. Like, it almost sounds so cliche, because it's like a lot of things in life. Like if you don't put the work in, you're not going to reap, that kind of, or if you don't put the work in, you're not going to reap that kind of reward, you reap what you sow. Like that whole mentality, that is Telemark to a T. It ain't easy. It's never going to be easy, but man, you can unlock some amazing stuff from the turn downhill. And I'll actually say that for the uphill, because I do hammer a lot in the podcast. Telemark is a downhill technique. But you know what? And I remember it kind of makes me think it when I first met Craig Dostie and we were talking about that. And I know I reference him a lot, but he was kind of like almost like the counterpoint to everything that I was doing when I got into the Telemark business. He's like the old guy. He's been around forever. He's all about backcountry. And here I was, like a young guy. I'm like, I want to jump. I want to go fast and do all this other stuff. And I remember hearing him at one point. It's kind of one of those things like someone tells you, and then you don't really realize it till it's like your parent tells you something, and then like 20 years later, you're like, oh, yeah, now I get it. And that's how it was with Craig. On the uphill, he would talk about the most efficient kick turn on the skin track. And I was always like, what are you talking about? Like efficient kick turn. I'm like, yeah, I want to make a good kick turn so I can get my traverse, set my skin track and keep on moving. But it was like an art to him, and, yeah, I think I've started to appreciate that more, just like there's a mindless zone in the downhill technique. There's also a mindless zone on the uphill, and it all makes you a better snow traveler, and ultimately a better, more well-rounded Telemark skier. But yeah, Dave, thanks for that little reminder of that episode. I'm going to try and dig more into that, and, just a shout out of encouragement, mastery, I think in and of itself has lots of levels. So I'm sure you're well on your way. And for any of you that are listening out there that have any discouragement about Telemark skiing, stick with it. And, try to find resources around you and people. And, we're trying to do our best of providing some of that stuff. And, sometimes it's just good to hear from other people and hear that something's hard. So you're not just in a deep hole going, how am I ever going to figure this thing out? So just remember, it's definitely not as easy as some people try to make it out to be, but there is great reward on the other side of the workload. So awesome one. I'm going to try to hone my mastery, I guess, this year too, because I'm always trying to better myself that way too, so we can do it together. This next one has an image too that I'm going to kind of describe, but it's funny. This talks about Keith Calhoun too. That was a great episode. If you haven't listened to that, super interesting. Keith's from North Carolina, but again, kind of part of that early couple phases of guys and girls out in Crested Butte in the mid to late 70s that brought telemark skiing back into vogue. He said, Josh, I really enjoyed the last episode with Keith Calhoun. Here is another photo of the Rotofella Snob binding. SNABB is how you spell snob. I never used them, but did put a lot of miles on the Super Telemark model back in the day. And he talks about having some history in his part of the country. But I wanted to just... So thanks for sending that, Keith. Sounds like he's over in Mammoth in the Eastern Sierra and California. And this picture is amazing. It's amazing that you guys this predates me. I started on a Normark 3-pin. I don't even remember. I haven't seen a lot of these snob bindings, but it's kind of like a 3-pin, and then it's got the toe bail. I'll try to put a link to it somewhere, or put it on the Instagram or Facebook if you guys are on that to check it out. But it's really interesting because the latching mechanism's actually mounted separately out in front of the toe, and then the lever reaches out to the little latches and snaps down. It's really interesting. It's just a 3-hole mount. Super classic, though. It's amazing you guys skied on this stuff. It's amazing you guys continued to try telemarking when the gear, I guess you just didn't, it wasn't like plastic boots and crazy bindings were around at that point. But yeah, old gear, you guys, send it my way. Pictures are great. I always like adding it to my knowledge base. So let's see. Next one. This was a quick one from Max. He just said, "Hey, would you be able to talk about skins for backcountry stuff?" Yes, we're going to do some backcountry specific episodes coming up. I'm going to try and get some guests or combinations of guests, whether it's probably be the shop guys, maybe bring Dosty back. I've had a couple of my guide buddies on there. There's so much to talk about. So if you guys have ideas of what you want to hear, I'm sure I'll probably focus on the more general, like kind of like a bag dump, like, hey, what's in your bag? And we can talk about some basics of getting into it. What skis, boots, bindings, beacon shovel probe, kind of get into it that way. But yeah, we'll do some backcountry episodes, because I know, like we've said, this is going to be an interesting winter. And I think people are going to really start looking at backcountry as another option, just because of the resort situations. So I think this is the last one. This is from Jeff, and I wanted to throw this out there because this brought up a topic that I thought was pretty interesting, and I want to get your feedback on it. So Jeff says, "I love the podcast. I would love to support you and can PayPal you, but Patreon might be a really nice option. I'd love to give a few bucks every episode, and Patreon makes that really easy. I can PayPal every episode, but I would probably forget to do it every week. You can make the Patreon," and he just kind of goes on to explain it. But Jeff, thanks for kind of bringing up that topic. I know at the end of the episodes, I'm always saying, hey, if you want to make additional support of the podcast specifically, you can always PayPal us at a link. And this just kind of brought up something. I mean, look, the idea of starting the podcast ideally is because we want you to know about the Freeheel Life Shop, what we do, and it gives us a way to connect with you, and obviously we want to be your preferred telemark shop, like I'm always saying. But I'm curious, we obviously need to offset the costs and stuff of just time and putting stuff together. If there's more of you out there that are willing to support the podcast in an additional way like this, I would love to hear about it. Just because it'll make it easier for me to know how to produce more, and obviously we're always looking at, how to support certain things, and that kind of helps us move forward and create more stuff. But ultimately, we want you guys to get this information, and the more you guys can express your interest in how to support us, that's great. So I guess on that note, thank you for listening and kind of just rolling through a bunch of random topics. I love Telemark so much, you guys. I love talking about it. I love seeing that there's people from all over the globe that are into it. I know you're in your own little nooks and crannies of your countries and towns and wherever, and it's all great. And I get excited just to talk about it every week. So like I was saying, that Jeff was talking about in his last email, if you want to send additional support for the podcast directly, you can do it at paypal.me/freeheellife. Otherwise, please consider supporting and buying your Telemark gear from our shop. And you can go there at freeheellife.com. You can email us with questions about products at customerservice@freeheellife.com. You can email me directly at podcast@freeheellife.com. And then you can always check out Telemark Skier Magazine, which is our kind of online resource for gear reviews, happenings, events, highlights of people in our little industry and what's going on with that. And you can find that at telemarkskier.com. Much love, everybody. And I can't wait to talk about more snow and getting closer to the season. I hope you're all starting to think about making turns out there and doing a million exercises to get your legs in shape so you can minimize the burn. And until next week, spread Telemark always, my friends. See you next time.